Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you our CFL Week 1 preview between the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Toronto Argonauts. So let's take a look at some keys to victory for both teams, starting with Hamilton.
You look at the Ticats in this game offensively, I think they can have some success down the middle of the field and on the hashes with guys like Andy Fantus and Samuel Jageri. Those guys can own the middle of the field versus this Toronto defense, and I think that's where they're going to have to go if they want to have some success in the passing game. And when you look at Henry Burris, the wily vet back there at quarterback, his ability to extend plays not only in the pocket but outside of the pocket instantly helps out that Ticats offense and could open up more holes for Siobhan Walker to burst through, and we know he has that speed to take it the distance. And on the defensive side of the football, I look at Markeith Knowlton being an X factor for the Ticats, one of the best blitzers coming off the edge in the CFL, period. When you look at his skill set, this is a guy that can give Ricky Ray problems because he's so fast off the snap, and Ricky Ray is going to have to get rid of that football quickly. And I'm interested to see second-round pick from last year, Frederick Plessis out of Laval. He was one of the top prospects in the CIS because of his coverage skills. This is a versatile linebacker, a three-down linebacker, doesn't have to come off the field, and he's going to see a lot of action this week versus the Argos. Now let's move over to the Argos in this ball game. And if I'm Toronto, I make this ball game a horizontal game, sideline to sideline. When you look at guys like Chad Owens, Chad Cackard, Andre Dury, the slot back, all of these guys can make one miss in space. So they do a great job in space. So look for a lot of swing passes, bubble screens, crossers to get those guys the football in space so they can make one miss and get down the field. And the big battle I'm looking to see up front is between left tackle Tony Washington versus defensive end Shamari Williams. The Ticats signed Williams in the offseason, hoping he can add that spark to the defensive line that sorely needed it last season. Washington is going to have to keep Ricky Ray clean all game in order for the Argos to have a chance. When you look at Toronto, there's a bunch of new guys on that defensive line, in particular the defensive end position like David Lee, Cleon Lane, who's a rookie, Nikos Brown, Jonathan Williams. Those guys are going to have to remain gap disciplined versus Siobhan Walker, who's an explosive running back. And if he gets a crease or a lane, forget about it. It's a house call. Now, out there on the corners, I think they can stay physical with Pat Watkins, who's a 6'5 cornerback, does a great job with bump press at the line of scrimmage, and Jaleel Carter, who's 6'1", 200 pounds, another guy that does a fine job in jamming the wide receivers. If they can stay physical on the outside, funnel everything in, it makes it easier for those safeties to be effective. Now let's take a look at some coaching points for both teams in this ball game. For Hamilton, interior pressure versus the running game. You have to get pressure from within if you want to slow down what Toronto does on the ground. And they also have to attack the seams in the pass game. We talked about that earlier. Andy Fantus could be a huge X factor in this game offensively. And they have to force Ricky Ray to make quick decisions so that way they can rally up, make the tackle, and get off the field. Hamilton does have an explosive offense, and they need to get the ball back as much as possible in order to have a shot. For Toronto, they got to make this game a track meet. We talked about it earlier, how these guys can go sideline to sideline with the best of them, and the linebackers keeping gap integrity as well. We talked about the defense line, but if they don't fill those gaps, then it's going to be a long day. And Burris is a fumbler. You have to remember that. So when you're going after Burris, don't be afraid to swipe at the ball. You may come away with a cheap turnover to get the ball back. I like Toronto in this ball game. The reigning Grey Cup champions will open up at home versus their hated rival, and I think they come away victorious. When I look at what Toronto does well, the running game, the ability to make one miss, their passing game is also an extension of the running game, and we're going to see if they rebuilt that defensive line effectively versus a good team like Hamilton. And on the flip side, if the Ticats are going to win this ball game, they're going to have to make this one a shootout because Toronto doesn't have enough offensive firepower to keep up if this one starts to get out of hand. And I want to give a huge shout out to Argo fan forums and Ticat fan forums for always showing football game plan support.